Hello everyone and welcome to the Shaded Pixels podcast, where we break down video games topic by topic, shaded pixel by shaded pixel. I think that's it. I don't think I was supposed to say shaded, but I'm getting closer and closer every single time I do this.
It's impressive.
I'm your host, Esteban Cuevas, or Stephen Caves. I don't know anymore. I think I might be getting gaslit to change my name. I don't know. But I don't know. Maybe you can tell me. One of my hosts, BJ Brown.
No.
Fair enough.
Yes.
How about you, Shawn Richards?
No and yes.
I mean, maybe just tomorrow because it's America Day. But other than that,
America Day.
stick to your roots, man.
Well, I suppose that might have something to do with it. Trump's America and all. Anyway, our topic for today, speaking of unpleasantness, is crossplay.
And
Wait,
joy.
isn't crossplay a good thing?
Well, it should be, but that's the thing. Some people seem to think it's not, and that's one of the things we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about crossplay, the reasons to do it, the reasons to not do it, pros and cons of it, and just some of the stuff that has been going down with the implementation of crossplay, most notably what has been going on between Sony and Fortnite.
You can do it.
We can do it, and we will do it.
Yeah.
So, I guess the best place to get started with this is we should talk a little bit about the... well, first, just to clarify, for anyone who may not know, crossplay is a concept where a video game can be played online between people who have different ways of playing it. So consoles, mobile, and computers. Any combination of those.
Basically, if you have a this, and you have a friend that has a this,
Or this.
Yeah. Or the computer, which is, what you're using right now.
or
The same
thing.
Yeah.
You can play together. That's what crossplay is. It's playing between different types of devices.
Online. Yes.
Yes.
That's the key.
That is what crossplay is, and that's what seems to be the problem with a lot of this stuff. And specifically, the biggest problem that's been in the news right now, this is something that's been in the news before, but right now the problem is people who want to play Fortnite on the Nintendo Switch and the Xbox One and PC and mobile are unable to play with people who play Fortnite on the PlayStation 4. To the point even that their account, their Epic Games account, actually blocks them from being able to carry the progress over to those other consoles if they had originally played on the PlayStation 4.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, in other words, ladies and gentlemen, since I always like to make this podcast about myself, I can't play Fortnite on any other device because if I do so, I'd have to unlink and erase all of my 2-game progress on Battle Royale. And that would piss me off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I think it'd be much more bigger deal for other people who have spent
Oh, no.
hours.
No. It's not about them. It's about me. Okay? Those were 2 very good games, okay?
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm going off of a bit more of a personal, more relatable idea. I live with 3 other people. When I first started living with them, I only had a PlayStation 4, and they are part of the Xbox faithful. I was part of the PlayStation faithful.
Okay.
But because I wanted to play the same games, but could not because PlayStation and Xbox don't like to mesh well together, I bought an Xbox One, and because of how much I play online with them, my Xbox One has now become my main console instead of my PlayStation 4.
Okay.
So when the next console arrives and I have to choose one, I'm going to be more inclined to choose an Xbox One over a PlayStation 4 because of that online community.
Or
And that's
Xbox
where your
or
friends
PlayStation, whatever they end up calling it.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing with it. It's people have been dedicated to the online communities. That's what people were predicting with the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 when they started coming out, is that, you know, people don't want to abandon their online communities to jump ship to another console. But with this, you don't need to jump ship. You can continue playing on the same console that you have been using and still maintain that link to the online community. And I think that's a big thing with crossplay right now.
For that particular game, make that clear.
Yeah.
For that particular game.
Well, you know, what's big now might not be big later, but what's big later will be a big deal as well. And we'll have the same problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to make this clear, oh, go ahead, BJ.
And from my understanding, just technically speaking, it seems to be something that most studios, well, let me rephrase. Technically speaking and business-wise, this whole concept seems to be more beneficial and something that developers want to do, of course, because it would lead to longer lifespan of their games. Mm-hmm. Whereas like the console manufacturers or the people on the net code into things that have to deal with the online communities and seeing friend lists and all that other kind of stuff, i.e. Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, they would have to work together and open up certain things to see certain code or whatever in order for friend lists and chatting and everything to work out well in the midst of actually being able to play with other people on other consoles. So it's not that it is so difficult that it can't be done. Mm-hmm. At this point, it's kind of a situation where you could almost say it's a business strategy. And because you've got I forget how many players, at least 2, if not 3 different players that are all involved in this, outside of the consumer. Mm-hmm. That makes things a little difficult, since each player has their own business strategy, I guess, with regards to what crossplay does for them and what crossplay does not do for them.
Right. Well, that's actually a good point to lead off with. There's crossplay has been kind of like a idea for a long time, but it hasn't been until recently has it been actually finally realized. So the reason for that was because there's been a whole bunch of reasons of why this can't work, why this is going to be a problem, and there's actually a couple of points I think we should go through and discuss about crossplay. The number one thing that I think even nowadays people may have concerns about with crossplay is player advantages. Now, this depends on the video game, but most of the time...
Control scheme.
Yeah.
More specifically.
But most of the time, with the games that you play online, usually people who play with a mouse and keyboard have a more tactical advantage over people who play with a gamepad.
With regards to aiming.
In regards to aiming,
yes.
And there's other things like I suppose like for example a strategy game, you'd be able to move around units stuff a lot more quicker than you would on a gamepad.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's been a big thing because that still seems to be a point of contention for a lot of people even now that people want this even more and they don't care about the other stuff that we'll get to. But I don't know, how do you feel? Do you think that's enough of a reason to deter developers from making their games crossplay?
In my opinion, as you said, I think it depends on the game. If you've got a first-person shooter, like we were talking about, there's a clear advantage for aiming when you've got a mouse and keyboard. When it comes to maneuvering your character around, you may have an easier time with the gamepad, but the difference between a mouse and keyboard and gamepad when it comes to first-person shooters is not even close. I don't care how good you are with a gamepad on a console. You get up against somebody that's good with a mouse and keyboard, they have an advantage. Period. And
if you have some two people who know what they're doing, the person with the mouse and keyboard will always be better.
Right.
Sure, if you're playing somebody with mouse and keyboard who doesn't know what they're doing and someone with gamepad who does, then they could still win. But
yeah, if
they're at the same skill level, then they're actually not at the same skill level because they're now at a disadvantage.
Yeah, but I mean, there is a way for developers to get around that. They can basically, technically speaking, they can just say if you're doing a ranked match online or something like that, that they basically can just force a particular control scheme, and just say, look, if you're doing ranked online and you're doing in your crossplay between platforms, everybody has to have a control pad. Yeah. Or a gamepad, and just leave it at that. And then just say, if you want to do private matches where everybody uses different control schemes, go for what have fun. But on ranked, everybody's on the same playing field, because that's what the whole ranked match and tournament match idea. Mm-hmm. The importance is having a level playing field when it comes to FPS, frames per second, or the control scheme, or anything to that effect, and graphic quality, that kind of thing. So
what do you think, Shawn?
So I'm kind of going where BJ is. If you're in a more competitive setting, then yeah, of course PC is going to have the advantage, bar none, because even if, you might have a game where a gamepad is better than mouse and keyboard, I can plug a gamepad into my PC. That's the thing. You can't, not yet anyway, plug a mouse and keyboard into a console. Although it wouldn't surprise me if that's like a thing for the next Xbox or the next PlayStation or what have you. Just
I think it is a thing on the PlayStation at the very least.
Funny thing you say that, because there actually is a feature on both the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3 that allow you to plug in a mouse and keyboard and make it used. Some games allow you to do that, but most of the games block it out, and the feature is only used for menu navigation.
Right.
So it can be used, it's just purposely blocked.
Right. So if you have something like that where, you have the Xbox Elite controller, but you're like, hey, here's this Xbox branded mouse and keyboard, or something like the half keyboard and the mouse that's mostly just for competitive gaming, it's kind of like a fight stick for a fighting game. If you have a fight stick versus a regular gamepad, the fight stick's going to have the advantage. But
I believe that, but there's people who think otherwise. But
it's gonna have. I think the advantage between the two isn't as great on fighting games as it is when you're talking first-person shooter and a mouse and keyboard.
Right.
There is an advantage, but I think there's just so much more of an advantage when it comes to aiming when you're using a mouse and keyboard.
Right. This is more of the similar idea behind it. So having those branded peripherals or those branded controllers for those consoles would allow for this. And also, if you're looking at some of the games that, with the exception of Fortnite, there are two other, I think, main games in recent media that have talked about crossplay. Or, sorry, 3 games. Fallout 76.
Yeah.
Minecraft.
Yes.
Which there's no competitive Minecraft that I can think of. And Rocket League, which, if I'm not mistaken, Rocket League is actually best played with a gamepad because of the driving scheme of it. So
it could go either way.
There are ways to compensate for that. It's just
now,
I think what BJ said, just make sure it's like one control scheme for ranked matches, or even saying, for ranked matches, this is where we're going to gate this off. Or
even or even if you just don't feel like playing with players that you know would automatically have that ability. In Street Fighter V, which is a Sony game exclusive, at least for console, they have it so you can just filter out PC players. Like if you don't want to play against PC players, you just take it out. Or if you just want PlayStation 4 players, you can just do that.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, I think like the advantage is there, but there's not. It's not like there's not ways around it. So,
yeah, there's ways around it.
Yeah, you could allow mouse and keyboard to be used on consoles. I mean, that seems so obvious. They could be selling like Xbox and PlayStation branded keyboards and mice.
Yeah, like we were talking about before, I think a majority of it is just they just plain have their business strategy that prevents
let's get to that
certain
then.
things, you know.
Let's get to that then.
Someone called Mad Cats. Oh wait, they closed in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, that's sad.
So there's on the business strategy thing is actually two parts. There's one where it's more. This is what I've been hearing. Sony's like mentality's been. There's been an ex-executive who's saying back when he was part of SEO, Sony Online Entertainment, that he was saying that the mentality over there is that they don't want to do it because they can't get money from bonus content. So. In this regard, it'll be DLC and microtransactions, because when you sell it on PlayStation, you the company that makes it gets a cut, but the manufacturer also gets a cut. So if they allow that for crossplay and all that, someone buys something on the Xbox as opposed to the PlayStation, they don't get anything, and so that's why they don't want to do it. Okay.
And
yes.
Okay. This is dumb for several reasons. Number one, this is true of a game in general. Like even if you sell a game on a PlayStation 4 and an Xbox One, that's like saying I don't want you to be able to sell that game on the other console because then we won't get the profits from that sale, which doesn't make any sense to me. And more importantly, if you want the sales from the DLC to go to you, that's what the free market is. That means you have to have a price that's more competitive. Make people want to buy the DLC and the microtransactions on your platform. And you do that with bundles and sales and, capitalism.
Yeah. Here's where I get kind of confused with the whole business strategy, with that whole aspect of the business strategy.
Okay.
When it comes to crossplay and the idea of saying when you, the gamer, is on any console, you still have to have that game on that console. It's not like you're getting that game for free on all the other consoles just because you have it on one. So that's one thing. So it's not preventing
unless they allow for that, which is
unless it's a free game. Yes, unless it's a free game. That's a little different,
or
right?
even if they just do it that way. Sony has a thing called cross-buy, when they used to sell games for both the PS3 and the Vita, and you just get them together.
Well, yeah, that was a little different though, because that was all on their hardware.
Sure.
So their cross-buy, it didn't matter. They were willing to let it be on all of their different consoles because it was their console, and each one of those were still tied to their online service.
Yeah.
So for them, that was nothing, right?
Sure, I guess, but changing
it's a
the
little
formula to include somebody else is not a wild idea.
Right. I think where it's a little different is because where the large issue is right now, and we'll use Fortnite as the example because that's the big thing. A lot of these larger companies always have their own I guess you'd say, online. I don't want to say launcher, but their own online infrastructure. Okay, so Epic Games, 2K, even I think Bungie, I think they do as well. I don't know if they use an online launcher. I don't think they use an online launcher.
I think they bundled it in with, well, I know for Destiny, they've bundled it in with Battle.net.
Okay. Blizzard, yeah.
Then
Blizzard.
They don't, but Blizzard does, so.
Yeah, Blizzard. So those companies,
unfortunately, but yeah.
Oh, Ubisoft also does the same thing. So, you start looking at those large companies even I think Warner Brothers does that also. Every time you start on a particular console, they always have you log in to their online account, even after you're on a particular console or even the PC. So it's like you've got your online console service, and then you've got a whole nother account that you have to link, to that console or PC or I'll just say platform, right? So you're having to hop in between all these different accounts and everything, right? And the problem is that once you start linking and unlinking to platforms, that's where Fortnite seems to have their grind, right? Because they're saying, okay, you purchased all this DLC or whatever on this account, so if you jump on this other account or whatever, and this is Sony's stance, this isn't everybody else's stance, they feel like, oh, we don't like the fact that everything that you bought was possibly on another console, and you're being allowed to use that digital content or whatever on our console, right? Which is whatever, right? On the other hand, if you flip the script and say, okay, if everyone's stuck to that model, and I think this is where all three of us probably agree, if you stick with the current model of each one of the platforms having their own separate progression and account and everything like that, so that if you have DLC, you've got to buy the DLC on every single platform in order for it all to be the same. I mean, that's going to deter gamers from getting it on multiple platforms, number one, because they recognize they're going to have to buy a whole lot more, spend a whole lot more money on that same game that they've been playing, just so they can play in a similar fashion on a whole other console. So not only are you deterring a player from buying it more than once, you're also reducing the amount of time that player is going to spend on that game.
That, I think, is the main point, because, see, everything that you're saying before, I can imagine a company thinking, well, that's what we want. We want somebody to pick to play that game on our platform. Right. And then when they buy, since they have the game there, they'll buy all the DLC and microtransactions and all that on our platform. No one else is going to get that money. And because we don't have to split it with anybody else, just the developers of that game, we get the most profit out of it as well. But what they're not thinking long term is that an online game like that lives and dies by the community. So if the community dies on your platform, you're not going to make any more money, because no one's going to buy anything for that game anymore. However, if you are willing to give a little bit of that money in the profit over to some of your competitors and allow everyone to play all at once, everyone, including you, is going to make more money, because it's less likely that the game is going to die, since it's very easy to keep that community going, since you can play it anywhere.
It's basically business centric versus gamer centric.
It's long run thinking. No, it's not even that. It's business thinking in the long run.
Right.
As opposed to get the money and run now.
Right. Because and I'm sure some number cruncher or whatever has run the analytics or whatever, and they're and probably what they're basing that decision on is how many games have that kind of lifespan where that amount of work is really warranted. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because given we would love to play certain games, like I know some people have told me they would love to play the very first Call of Duty Modern Warfare to the end of time because they just loved the maps, they loved the community before, you know, all of the hackers completely rubbed it all in. But because there's no online community anymore on each individual platform, mm-hmm. it's not fun to play because you can't get a match. Yeah. Right? But I mean, if you had at this point with so many Call of Duty games that are out there, how many of those players, if they did have that crossplay feature, how many of those players would still, you know, play in, you know, would still play multi-platform or whatever? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's kind of one of those things. Would it really be worth it to spend the time to make it so that it's crossplay? So that it has that crossplay feature, or, you know, simply let the game die off so that they can push more of those people towards the new and shiny. Because we all know every time they do Call of Duty, that's what they're trying to do. Push them off the old onto the new. For the most part, you know, I'm certain, you know, the previous year game, they still want it to stay active. Mm-hmm. But the very, very new shiny Call of Duty, they want a majority of those players on that game.
Yeah, I mean, they'll keep the servers on.
Oh yeah,
for the people, they do. But that's about it.
Right.
But then again, I think that comes into question. Then is that business model flawed? You know, I mean, another way I can look at it is saying, well, isn't it better for you to spend less resources and just push the older game and let that keep going and let it make money for you, and you do next to no work? I mean, you're eventually going to have to make a sequel, but maybe you can take your time.
Well, honestly, I don't even think it's necessarily that complicated to answer your question. They've already made that. Developers are already pushing it. So they're forcing the business model right now because they're recognizing that they need to find more ways for their IP to stay alive longer and be more, and so that it can be more profitable for them, so that they don't have to spend so much development time on making new and shiny so often. Yeah. We constantly hear that, even with the consoles. You know, when they came out with this particular generation, they were like, look, we want this generation of consoles to last a long time. Mm-hmm. What better way to do that than to make certain that all of your successful games have a large online community through crossplay, right? I mean, that's the way all gamers are looking at it. We're like, look, all the games that we love, we want to be able to, you know, play a completely different single player game for a few months and come back to, say, Destiny 2 or something like that, and still be able to get a game quickly. Yeah. Without having to wait, you know, in a queue to see whether or not there's, you know, competitive enough players there or not.
I mean, I guess it depends on what type of game you're pushing. You know, obviously that's not going to work for a single player game. Honestly, that's not going to work for certain online games that aren't really built around that. I think Fortnite is a good example of a game that's meant for something like that, though. You know, where the entry point is really simple to get into. It's free. You know, and then everything is just
play.
It's free to play. Yeah, it's free to play. And it's just,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
The rest is just cosmetics, and that's how they're making their money. As long as they can continue making cosmetics that are worth it, then you can do that. Hell, I think they could even do like an expansion pack and charge for that, just as long as it's, you know, like big enough and worth the money.
What do you think, Shawn?
Yeah.
Pretty much what you guys are saying. The way I always think about it is, if Esteban's playing on one console, BJ's playing on another, I'm playing on a third, if we're trying to find a 3-player match or something like that, we're not going to find a game if we're the only ones on there. But if, you know, it was crossplay, then we can find a game immediately and play together. That's
right. That's worthwhile.
yeah, that's 3 fan bases. That's 3 different communities that can either die right off the bat or that are going to last because of that opportunity. One thing that I was actually speaking with my roommates about Fallout 76 and the issues that they were having with Todd Howard coming out and saying things like that. He actually did bring up a good point, and that's with modding, with Fallout 4 in particular, because Sony didn't like that, so they didn't implement it, but Xbox did. And because you have mods on PC going over to Xbox, you have the Fallout 4 community being more thriving on Xbox One because modding can go through that. And I think this, while not the same thing, is very similar.
Yeah, that's actually another good point. The manufacturers are always kind of pushing like, we have this exclusive feature, right? Like in their games, like we got this first, we get this DLC first, whatever it may be. This can be seen as very similar to that. It could be like, this game on the PlayStation 4 is closed off the way that Skyrim was, but it's open and free for mods on the Xbox One and PC. So it's one feature that you have less on your version, making it the inferior version. It's one less, check mark on the back of the box.
Right.
I'm surprised someone hasn't maybe seen it that way. One quick thing I want to bring up before we go to break.
Go ahead.
Is this is just my theory, but I think that maybe Sony has a grudge against one company in particular in this, and it's not Microsoft.
That's entirely possible.
Because do you know what I'm talking about?
Not really, but go ahead and let us know.
Sony's only in this business because Nintendo screwed them over back in the 16-bit generation.
I can see that.
You remember that now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sony has held, I think, a grudge against Nintendo ever since then. They've never really worked with them with anything. And, well, ever since then, the whole point, the reason why they hate them in the first place is because they were working with them with their sound chips and making an add-on for the Super NES, and then they completely screwed them over. And both Nintendo and Sony are a Japanese company, and it's sort of an unspoken rule in Japanese business that you don't screw over another Japanese company, and you especially don't do it with another company that's not Japanese. Nintendo went over with Philips, which was a European company, to make their side add-on, and then that didn't work out either. But still, the point is though that they committed a business corporate
cardinal sin. Yeah, cardinal sin there.
Yeah.
I have another theory on that, but I'm going to save that until after break.
Okay, well, that's my theory.
One quick thing. Quick thing in terms of how the whole crossplay thing is also important for developers, or even more so for gamers. When you start talking about lifespan of your game, online competitiveness, once you start getting those hardcore players at those higher tiers, highest levels or whatever, the competition gets very thin at your highest levels. And that's on any platform. So in my opinion, it just makes more sense that since you want a large player pool, even if it's on just one console, your higher tier players are going to want better and more competition at their higher tiers. And crossplay does that better than any other feature or any other way of getting players, together on your community. So
yeah. And then
I just see that as another bonus for developers,
And then another real quick thing, someone with a gamepad is going to be like, I could beat someone on mouse and keyboard.
And they're going to push it.
Show off.
Yeah, just to show off. Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk more about this crossplay stuff. We're having a good conversation about this. But we got to take a quick break. So please, everyone, just stick with us in the podcast. We'll be right back. See you in just a moment. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shaded Pixels podcast. We are talking about crossplay, and nothing weird happened during the break whatsoever.
That's right. Hate you, Facebook.
I was going to just move on. Damn it.
Well, we were talking about crossplay between
all of our Facebook
issues we have cross streaming between different platforms. So
yeah, all our Facebook people have the behind the scenes tour of the show. That's awesome.
I don't like that this happened. I changed my mind. Crossplay sucks. Okay, but yeah, we were talking about different things with crossplay. We were talking about some advantages it could have to people playing at top tier, and some people wanted to show off. I had a theory about grudges, and Shawn, I believe you had something you wanted to add.
Yeah, because this is going another way from grudges. This is actually going to more hardware centric things. I'm thinking about this in the form of Microsoft, because in the form of Microsoft, and one of the other games that they actually put out a commercial about crossplay. If you've not seen it, it's an amazingly great commercial. It's from Minecraft, which is a game that Microsoft is, Microsoft owns Mojang, so they own Minecraft now.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, okay, they have it on PC, which, is great, and they can also have it on mobile, but they also have it on the Switch. What's the biggest benefit to having it on the Switch? Then I realized Microsoft has never made an actual mobile console. Mm-hmm. So this could be, Microsoft saying, hey, we don't have any mobile console that we have. Here's a way that you can play it on mobile without you actually having to have a mobile console.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
they kind of do and don't. Microsoft didn't make a specific platform themselves that's mobile, but they do allow and have some of their software, including Minecraft, on mobile devices, tablets and phones. So in a way, since they really try to stay away from making hardware outside of the Xbox, they kind of utilize tablets and phones as their mobile solution, I guess you'd say.
Kind of.
And this could be just another way of expanding that.
Yeah.
Right.
What I'm trying to say.
Right. And also, I think Microsoft just has an idea, specifically for Minecraft, that it just needs to be anywhere, and that's the best way to make money, because Minecraft is also on PlayStation 3, PlayStation Vita, and I think there's a PlayStation 4 version too.
Yes, there is.
So
it's on everything.
Yeah, it's on everything. They don't care. Now, I don't think those versions are cross-play with any of the other platforms. They may be within themselves.
I think, but I have to check on that. I think they have cross-play on a majority of the consoles. I think.
I'm almost positive there's no cross-play with the PlayStation 4 version and all the other ones, because I think he literally just made a commercial about that.
Yeah, I think that is true, but I think between the other platforms, I think there's crossplay. Between the what?
The PlayStation 3 and the Vita, you think those have crossplay?
Well, the Vita's dead, so it doesn't matter.
But I mean, just between like the Xbox and like Android or something like, or not Android, but like mobile and PC and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess. I mean, it benefits them in that way. I'm starting to think that Microsoft is more and more understanding that, and which is something that they didn't understand for a long time.
I think they were kind of forced to via this generation because they messed this generation up so much.
Sure. Yeah.
That's just my opinion. I think they would have continued to be assholes if it wasn't for how well PlayStation did in this particular generation.
They would continue to be an elephant?
Yeah, that too. They would be the elephant in the room. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
because they ate a whole bunch of humble pie with this generation, and I think that is a big part of what caused a lot of shifting with a lot of their CEOs and a lot of their executive team and everything like that. And I think that redirected and forced them to say, oh, yeah, maybe we do want to try cross-play. We want to play well with others. Yeah.
I mean, you're not wrong. At the same time, I don't like the idea of saying that, oh, Xbox is doing so badly this generation. Like, oh, God, they've sold like
they aren't really doing that bad. I think it's just
they sold like 40 million.
Like we were talking about, it's just the whole competitive nature of business where the way that they're judged is how their competition is doing. So even if they're doing better than they were the previous generation, because they have to compare it not only to their performance but their competitors' performance, technically from a business perspective, they're losing.
Yeah, but is that business perspective really like valid? Oh no, we have some of the money, not all of it.
Well, when you are in business, yes, you always want to be the industry leader. So when you were the industry leader and you are no longer the industry leader, then your shareholders look at you like, okay, yeah, you're making more profit, but do you see your competitors? They're making more profit, which means their shareholders are making more money than we are. We're upset, make a change. Yeah, that's just how business is.
I would look at them and be like, just glad you're not Nintendo on the Wii U.
Well, and would
you like to be the Wii U?
No one wants to be the Wii U.
Nah, not even Wii U wants to be the Wii
U. But here's something.
But you see what I'm saying, business wise? That's kind of how, unfortunately, it works. That's why
but it doesn't make any. I understand what you're saying, and I believe you. But it's just I don't think it makes sense, because even right now I can say, well, do you want to be the Switch then? What about the Sony investors? Are Sony investors all of a sudden pissed off? Because
capitalism is an evil thing. We want all the money.
It just sounds like greed.
That's what capitalism is. We want all the money. We don't want good money. We want more money than everybody else. So if we know somebody's doing what we're doing and they're doing better, we want to figure out how to do better than they are.
One thing that has been brought up and that I've always considered is early on. I think this was before the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 actually came out. This was during the E3 and the Xbox One conference. Xbox One had that disastrous reveal, and then PlayStation came around at E3, had that short video where it's Adam Boyce and Shuhei Yoshida going, here's how you share your games on PlayStation 4. Here you go. Thanks. That was probably one of the most infamous videos out there.
Yeah.
And when you look at the Minecraft commercial for Microsoft and Switch, where you have Survive Together, and it's just like, that's basically their equivalent of their E3 moment where it's just, hey,
here's how you share games.
Thumbing their nose at the competition.
Exactly. It's basically just, here's this industry, here's this idea in which we are leading in the industry. And right now, it's not Nintendo they're having part of it, but the biggest part of that mind share is Microsoft. Microsoft are the ones saying, hey, we're allowing you to do this. We're spreading the wealth. Where are you at, Sony? And Sony's right now playing defensive. They're backpedaling to the point where it's just like, we want to protect our players. And the
only reason why they're backpedaling is because of that outcry. If there wasn't so much of an outcry, they'd just sit there and they'd look at the commercial and be like, whatever.
That's very ignorant to do, though. Both examples are examples of they're both examples of both companies going after each other and doing it by getting along with somebody else.
Yep.
In other words, both instances are ways of looking at it and being like, okay, we can kick your ass because his ass is helping my ass.
Yep.
And
it's a lot of ass. My enemy is my friend.
How many butts do you want? One or two? Two.
I want all the ass.
You want all the ass.
You want all $3. You don't want to share You don't want to share $1 with the other guy and only keep 2. You want all 3.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You don't want to keep people away from asses. Okay? What you want is you want all the asses there, and then if you want to make the most money, you prove to them that you have the best ass.
Bingo.
You have all the asses there, but then someone's like, okay, I'm going to have this ass primarily.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll mess with these others later on. That's how you do this. I love this conversation.
This part of the podcast down, by the way, and just clipping it. It's just a 50 page. It's just Esteban talking about asses.
All the ass.
Shady Pixels podcast highlights. There you go. No, but yeah, that's how you go about doing it. I understand the other way of thinking, but there's a very obvious way, especially for what's supposed to be a multi-million-dollar company, there's a way of debunking that and being like, this is more profitable. See, we keep talking right now about, well, this is the way the business is thinking and everything, and the point is that they want more money. We're telling them how to get more money and why this will work for them. It's counterintuitive to what they think. Now, the only difference is that you're not getting all the money right now. That's the difference.
Yep.
And that's not good enough for them, which is dumb, because in business, you want to stick around a long time so you make money for a long time. So you want long-term plans.
They're just I would love, a part of me wishes I was more well-versed in statistics, because I've done statistical courses and worked with statistical software before, analyzing data, analytics, all that stuff. Because I know that there's so many industries nowadays that live and die by analytics. And a lot of it, like you said, a lot of it ends up trying to balance when they make the money. So a lot of the times they can't bank, or don't want to. I won't say can't, because that's probably not true for a lot of these companies. They don't want to bank on the long haul. They want, if there's a good chance that in the short term they can make a good chunk of money at the expense of the long term, they're always going to go for the short term. Because just like we saw, and again, I keep using this as an example, but we keep talking about it every time we talk about video games. The Call of Duty model, from a gamer's perspective, seems like it's the dumbest model in the world. Why would you want a whole new Call of Duty game almost every single year? It's just annoying. There's no difference. It exhausts the player to have to restart, whole new account, whole new progression, whole new everything, every single year, different developer. It's just crazy. But because the analytics show that every single time one of these things drop, that they get buku amounts of money regardless of how good or bad the game is, guess what business model they're going to stick with? The short term, because it's guaranteed. They've seen that it works, and they want that big chunk of money that comes in every year when they drop one of those. So they go with the proven short term rather than the not necessarily unproven long term, but the questionable, would it really work out, and how long would it work out long term plan? You know,
I have 3 responses to this. One, the Call of Duty model wouldn't bother me so much if the 3 different games from 3 different developers would result in actually 3 different games, just with the same model. You know.
Mm-hmm.
2, if you want a good model for quick profits right away and nothing like long term, they'll just give you the money right now, single player games. They come in, they buy them, there's nothing left for you to do, so then it's over.
They do, but I don't know. I mean, think about it. What was the last single player game that broke sales records the way that Grand Theft Auto, the way that Call of Duty and games of that ilk have? I understand that they sell well. I don't even know if Fallout 4 has sold to that level.
Skyrim.
Skyrim. I don't know, man. All these games sold a lot.
Skyrim sold a lot, but it sold a lot on the long haul because they keep re-releasing it.
Super Mario Galaxy or
I
Odyssey.
don't think when it dropped, I don't think it made or did anywhere near as well in like the first month or so as like most of the Call of Duty games. I mean, you can even look at like a lot of the sales. I bet you the latest Call of Duty game is probably still in the top 10, 15 in terms of sales for just about every platform that it's on. You know what I mean? And most of the time and this is the generalization, I understand, but most of the time that's true for every iteration of a Call of Duty game. It usually stays in the top 15, top 10 sales for every platform that it's on for well after its release. It just is. But, you know, like you were saying, the sales numbers for single player games, they usually do really well that first month for your core people that love that franchise. And then it tapers off pretty quickly. But it sells, but it doesn't stay like in the top 10, 15. It'll sell, but it doesn't have the same kind of numbers, you know, long term as like a Call of Duty game or, you know, one of your online, you know, multiplayer type competitive games.
But that's not long term. That's what I'm saying though. That game, that single player game is meant to be short term. If you understand that, then you got the money that you got. Usually, like God of War made its money back. That thing was a very expensive game to make, and it made its money back and then some. Like it wasn't close or anything. It was extremely profitable for Sony. A Call of Duty game. Now here's the thing. The thing I will say about Call of Duty games is they're relatively cheap to make because they keep using the same engine. But they have 3 different teams making those games.
They make a ton of money for every one of those developers.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I think because of that, the only way that franchise is sustainable is if it's making like 5 million at least each time, like in copies.
And it pretty much makes those. I think maybe the only one that didn't really do that much over that might have been Ghosts. Maybe.
And you also have to imagine and remember with games like Call of Duty, you have continuous costs coming out there, but also they put out regular DLC releases that keep people engaged in getting that kind of content.
Yeah.
And microtransactions now. Yeah. So they get the double dip.
Well, not just that, but like with extra, just like the DLC packs that they still have coming out.
Packs, yeah.
And you also have to remember that it costs money to keep the servers on. Basically,
that's true.
Essentially, what I'm getting is, I'm not going to say that Call of Duty doesn't work. Clearly, it is, but it doesn't work as well as something like a Fortnite or a Minecraft because they're not making games over and over again. It's the same game with just minor upgrades. They don't have multiple studios. They don't have.
But you got to recognize
each game
that this whole Fortnite business model is relatively. I don't want to say it's relatively new, but it kind of is.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's fairly new.
You know, if you think about it, most competitive shooters, if you look outside of maybe your Counter-Strike. Most competitive shooters don't really have that long of a lifespan. Most. You've got your outliers, like maybe one of the Halos or something like that probably still has a good community, you know.
Overwatch.
Well, yeah, but that's more recent as well.
Battlefield. I mean, look, Battlefield I think would last longer if they didn't release a brand new one every other year.
Yeah, I think they kind of fell. I think after they started jumping into the console market, they changed their business model in terms of how much support they were going to give it and how long they were going to work on development for the next one. They fell into that whole Call of Duty. Oh, let's do it every year because hey, Call of Duty's doing it every year. Also, we can one up them.
Well, the third point I was going to make, which I didn't get to, and it encompasses all of this that we were saying, is, yeah, you can have this business model and you can say this is what we're going to do, but especially when you're making this much money and you see another model that's working and another practice that's working, like crossplay, there's nothing stopping you from changing that.
And it seems like Sony on the road to changing it. It just seems like it seems like they have, in my mind, it seems like they have no other choice.
There was an incident last year where someone at Epic Games accidentally, literally, they even described it as flipped the wrong switch, and they allowed crossplay between PlayStation 4 and Xbox One or something like that.
Yep.
I think it was Psyonix, actually.
Huh?
I think it was Psyonix Rocket League.
Rocket League definitely did that. I remember that.
They both did.
Yeah,
they both
did. Yeah.
So it literally is a matter of just flipping a switch. Like a lot of people will say it's not like we just flip a switch. It actually is. It literally is.
Technically, it is.
Yeah, I mean, there
like
needs
legally,
to be
in terms of what terms of service and what the companies will allow, that's a different story.
That's
but thing. They have an extra document like waiting in the bag saying, "Okay, you'll allow crossplay. Cool. We'll just switch 2 text documents out and we're good."
Yeah. Yeah, like they can do that, and we already know that it is possible, at least for those games, because they have the infrastructure. That's something that we didn't really get to. There's another reason why this could not work, and that's certain game engines that maybe don't work well with other platforms, stuff like that. Yes. Maybe the game is built on that and everything like that. That doesn't apply to any of the games we're talking about here, because Fortnite is built on Unreal, and Unreal is literally made to work on everything.
Everything, yeah.
We're not talking about like something like Sonic Boom, where they tried to use an engine and it ended out crapping on the Wii U because the Wii U was shit.
Yeah, well, that's one example that Unreal did not work on. It does not work on the Wii U well. Surprise.
Poor Nintendo.
Yeah. The Wii U, I'm talking so much shit, and I have the Wii U gamepad
right there. I think you're using the wrong finger to point it out.
Okay. But look, there's old school business logic behind this, but that's the problem. It's old school. There's ways around it. The technology is there now. You could have told me before that the technology was not there. It definitely is now.
Right, and developers have a lot easier time dealing with it because, I mean, you think about it, everything when it comes to multiplayer, console-wise at least, isn't really that old. We've only been doing it for a little bit over a decade. You know what I mean? So it's not like... Yeah, just doing competitive online play. Fast-paced competitive online play is not
on consoles. Sure,
yeah, console-wise. PC, it's been ever since internet for the most part. But now that you've got speeds of this level, you get the whole competitive portion of it. It's it just amps everything up. So now everything in terms of netcode and everything is catching up to a lot of the speeds that the internet can provide, and it's just a lot easier to do. Just like we were talking about before with Unreal, considering it's such a great and versatile engine, and now so many developers use it. There's ways to put all kinds of plugins and modules and stuff in there that you don't even have to program it. You just pick a module, pick a plugin, and put it in there, and all of a sudden you got multiplayer capability. So it's just a lot easier to do now. And like you were saying, a lot of the business models just have to evolve, as we're seeing them slowly do now. They just have to evolve along with the technology and the capabilities that we have now.
I wanted to end this podcast off with a question for our audience, but before I do that, do you two have anything else you'd like to add? No?
My final thoughts are crossplay is good. If you don't do it, you're being greedy for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. I can second that. Okay, so when I was looking up information on this stuff, I found some interesting like facts and history stuff about crossplay and how the big three have been kind of receptive to it or not receptive. Some things weren't surprising. Like, for example, Nintendo didn't do anything with crossplay until the 3DS and Wii U, and that was only with themselves. And it's literally only been until the Switch that they finally started working with other companies. So Nintendo's literally been doing crossplay for a year and a half. That's it.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. However, Sony was the first one to actually do crossplay, oddly enough, and it was with Final Fantasy XI back in 2002. And Microsoft started doing it.
But that was with PC.
Yeah, that was with PC.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily have to work with the whole other company and deal with their,
Yeah, but that was the first time anything like that had ever happened.
Mm-hmm.
Anything, a console, between another console, PC, anything. That's the first time that had ever happened.
But and again, that made sense because that was what their MMO, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was
well,
like
it wasn't
MMO.
Sony's. That was Square Enix's. Well, Square at the time.
Right. But the thing is, Square doesn't have their platform. They're just the developer. So it made sense to accommodate Square Enix. They were probably like, look, we want more people. MMOs are typically on PCs. Make it happen, Sony. And they were like, you got it. Make us more money. You got it.
You should be doing it more.
They should.
Microsoft then gave it a shot themselves on the Xbox 360 with Shadowrun, and as a matter of fact, they kept promoting it as, look, you can play on the PC and the Xbox 360, and it'll be the exact same, and it clearly wasn't, but they
tried.
They tried it. But here's something that I found very interesting. Both companies were actually both trying to do crossplay in some ways, but technology was sort of holding them back and sort of making it difficult, or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they wanted to work with like PC and everything, and that's why, more specifically, the Orange Box happened with Valve. It was them trying to get Valve into the console thing. So as a result, they started working with PCs more. However, back in, I believe, 2012, both Microsoft and Sony did not approve, essentially, Valve's attempt to put Counter-Strike Go on the consoles. They refused because Valve was demanding that it be cross-play with the PC players. So what I would like to ask, because I wasn't able to find any information on this, what changed that year? Because up until this point, there's evidence of both companies trying to do something.
I think a part of it has to do with the way that Sony and Microsoft approve patches. Yeah. Because the way that Valve approached patching, well, not Valve. Who's the developer for Counter-Strike?
It's Valve.
It's Valve. Okay, yeah. I mean, so
the way that it's a company within within Valve that they bought out, but I mean, it's Valve.
It's basically Valve. Yeah, from my understanding, the way that Valve wanted to patch Counter-Strike because of all the tinkering and balancing and just additions to the game, the speed that they wanted to do it in was something that Sony and Microsoft were not willing to take on, because they have such high apparent standards for what they allow, and they have to approve when it comes to patching on all of their software.
You're correct. You're correct. That's actually one of the reasons, but that's not. But that wasn't the reason for why it wasn't allowed crossplay and for just the game to be released entirely.
Mm-hmm.
So unless Valve was like, well, if you don't give us the patches, we're going to cancel everything, then there must have been another reason why the game wasn't released, and why, or not wasn't released, but why it wasn't allowed crossplay, when there was evidence already at that time saying that they were trying to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So something happened around that time that made both companies backtrack on that.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like up until recently, that has remained the same except for Microsoft, which is now starting to play ball. And I would like to know what that is. So if anyone who may be watching this happens to know that, I'd love to hear it in the comments.
And another question I want to ask our viewers out there is, if there is one game that you could allow crossplay between, what would that be? Like just one game. If Sony said, okay, we'll do this, but just for this one game, what game would that be?
That's a good question.
Yep.
It'll probably be a fighting game for me, but
Yeah.
All right. Well, that has been a podcast, and quite a good one, I must say. So, to end things off, let's talk about where people can find us and what we're going to be doing. So, let's go with Shawn first. What are you going to be doing with content and stuff like that, and where can people find you?
All right. So I am testing out the waters with some new content coming out. Going to plan on doing a little bit of recording, maybe a little bit of streaming here and there. Not quite sure, but you can always check out my channel. It's youtube.com/Shawnathan Studios. You can also find me on Twitter at Little Big Ham. Same thing for Facebook. Just follow me on there, and you'll get some updates as to what I'm going to be doing in the future.
Okay. Sounds good. How about you, BJ? What kind of content are you going to be doing, and where can people find you?
I am probably going to be doing what I attempt to do every week, is figure out if I can actually stream. Now that I've finally gotten my XSplit to work, as our people on Facebook Live can actually see, I can actually get some streaming done now. Whether or not all of my family members in my household will allow me to do that, since they're all on summer vacation, is another story. But as always, just keep it locked on my Twitch channel for the most part. Also, you'll probably see the recorded streams on YouTube. So stay following and subscribe to both of those channels for me, and you'll catch anything that I decide to stream. And hopefully I'll see if I can actually get around to doing some recordings.
Cool. And what are the names of those channels?
Same thing, Bunny 3000 on both networks. So
okay. All right. For me, I finally started releasing some Let's Play videos. My Colorwin Beats Alice Madness Return series has made a comeback, and I'm posting episodes of that every Monday and Thursday. So check those out. They get posted at 12 or at noon Pacific time. Let me see what else. That's at youtube.com/Colorwin. Pretty easy to find. I'm streaming again. I finally did the Street Fighter stream yesterday. That went well. I'm not being sarcastic. It actually did went well. And I'm streaming again this Thursday, Street Fighter 5. That's going to be a quick stream, though, because I just wanted to check out the new survival mode that they put in the game. There was already a survival mode in there, but now they're revamping it, and they put loot boxes into there, which is weird. Like, no, like, it's weird. It's freaking weird, because it's not for online play. It's not for cosmetics. It's just for power-ups that you put in the survival mode. No other mode. Online play? No, it's not in there. It doesn't make any freaking sense. So that's why I'm just going to stream to see what the hell is this nonsense. Capcom can't even do loot boxes right. I don't.
Way to go, Capcom. We love you.
I don't know. But you can check that stream out on Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/HeyColorwin. Other than that, I think that's all I got coming up the pipeline for this coming week. You can just follow me on Twitter at HeyColorwin. I'm also on all the other social stuff on HeyColorwin, but I'm mostly on Twitter. And I guess that's about it. That's going to be our show for the week. Thank you very much for watching, everyone who may be watching or is going to watch. And I guess
make sure you follow us at these lovely links right over here.
Yes. Good shit, Shawn. All the links right there on the bottom left corner. That's where you can follow the podcast proper. And we will see you next week. Same time, same place. Catch you all later. Bye.
Peace, people.
Bye.